We are live. Welcome, welcome. It is the Q&A. It's Thursday. It's just after 1 o'clock. We do 30 minutes, hard and fast. We like to get it done. And we've got a great guest today. Real estate is full of things, including legal pitfalls. We have lawyers for a reason. They are good people. They are helpful people. Just trying to create the aura of lawyers being good. This is great. We have Daniel Senior. Daniel's private practice focuses on corporate, commercial, and real estate law. He acts for businesses and real estate transactions of all sizes and stages in their career and their life, and does happen to work with a lot of high net individuals, from what I read. Um, and he's now started his own practice up in Newmarket. Is that the area that you're in now?
We're in Newmarket. Our main office is in Newmarket, and but we do so that's kind of our main hub, and then we practice across the province, and we do M&A deals and stuff like that, greater ones across the country,
So I
but
love it
primarily on Twitter.
because you're completely virtual, digital, and a lot of my clients down here in Burlington have used you. So it's not like specific to the area anymore, such as the planet. Everybody's coming together with this virtual business of signing electronically and so on and so forth. So
As we are
you
today.
also pay out all your checks and everything electronically as well, as far as I'm aware.
Everything we're a paperless firm, which means we still go through lots of paper. But that is one of the things that we offer to our clients, and a benefit, yeah, is being electronic, and not just utilizing technology for that purpose, but it also using high technology also allows us to be very secure. And so when you mentioned something like payouts and writing checks, we're able to be faster than historic or the dinosaurs, and but we're also able to be more secure and make sure that money goes where it's supposed to go, because as most people would know, fraud is so prevalent now, and it's not just small little things. It's hundreds of thousands, millions. They're getting in through your email. They're doing all sorts of stuff, and so using really sophisticated technology to prevent that sort of thing, and safeguard clients' data, clients' confidential information, all of that stuff is very critical.
So let me ask you something. I know my backstory, my OG origin story about getting into real estate. A lot of people do. I have family in real estate, so it kind of just slid me right in there pretty easily. What was it that drew you to the law? I mean, I know there's obviously some financial benefit, and working hard, you can make some good money in the industry. But what were the specific things that drew you into the law?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a hard worker, and I think I kind of everything I do, I try to tie back to. It was actually a Conan O'Brien quote on his last night of the Tonight Show, and it's a really kind of a poignant speech he gave. But as long as you work hard and you're kind, good things will happen. And so whether that's in law, real estate, trades, you're a fireman, whatever you do, if you're kind and you work really hard, good things will happen. They happen for your business, they happen for you personally. And so I really live by that. I actually have that, in a certain sense, tattooed. And I had that tattooed after I had a botched surgery, and almost died.
Oh,
So
geez.
that's kind of part of the ethos that I practice and live by. Also, that our firm that I started, I'm the founding partner of our firm, and that our firm kind of tries to live by. So my origin story is, I was a kid who grew up in a small town outside of Hamilton, and cornfields and the whole thing. And so Burlington, Oakville, Waterdown. I grew up in Waterdown. So that's all home for me, even though our main office is in Newmarket. And as a young person, I'm sure my parents would say I was quite argumentative. Teachers would say I was very good at arguing, and eloquent with words on paper and spoken. So it kind of just honestly, that was the flow of the river that where I went. It just kind of always made sense to go into law one way or another, not really knowing what that would look like. And I did that out west. I went away to school. I didn't finish my undergrad degree. I skipped through, and was really lucky and blessed to be accepted to law school at an earlier age without having finished my undergrad studies. And I went to University of British Columbia, which is not just a great school, but also also a beautiful school.
Hmm.
And so that was wonderful. And if anyone likes cherry blossoms, there's a couple areas and beaches and everything. It's if you're ever visiting Vancouver, take time to go out to UBC campus because it just in itself is a gorgeous place. And I worked after law school. I stayed in Vancouver and worked, and I did appeals litigation, and that was not for me at the time. And there I also had some health complications myself, and my grandfather here, my granddad was ill, and we were really close growing up. So I wanted to move back and be close so I could be with him in his last few years, and I was lucky to benefit to that. So my backstory is it's pretty bland. It just kind of I floated down the river where it took me, and ended up and so I kind of once I was back in Ontario and I was practicing again litigation, I consciously made the choice in my mind to say I like this, I don't love this, and I have a penchant for entrepreneurialism. So while I am the managing partner and founder of our law firm, I also have some other projects and business interests outside of law, and passion projects, both profit based and not, and more on the charitable side as well. So that kind of mentally drew me to turning my focus from litigation into corporate and commercial and real estate, which is how I began specializing here and converted my practice to that many years ago now. And I ended up being, doing the Bay Street big boy lawyer thing, thinking I'm important and everyone should think I'm important, and getting through that was interesting, and had an opportunity with some external partners to really to leave the downtown law practice and open our own firm, which is what we have now. Is we the firm name is Think Green Law, and I'll mention why in a second. It's a double entendre, and we're not an environmental firm, although we do try to be environmentally friendly, and with the idea of not just having Bay Street style billing practices and expensive suits that are the reason we have to charge more, and the bigger expensive art on the walls, those kind of things. But the idea with opening our practice was essentially to be Bay Street for Main Street, to be able to service clients of high net worth and small, medium, and large scale businesses. We still do really monster scale and really complicated stuff, but being able to bring that to the suburbs and out of the downtown 416 style, where it may be impractical geographically to work with those types of lawyers or financially, and to bring fair billing and ethical practice to clients who otherwise are in kind of an unmet niche. So that was the idea with opening the firm, and we did that about 4 years ago. So we've been growing really quickly since then, and our firm focuses on real estate and corporate, essentially our main things, with a kind of a guise to tax planning and the tax implications of corporate transactions. So mergers, acquisitions, buying, selling businesses, financing businesses. We do a lot of private financing, and then all of the residential and commercial real estate. And
What I find interesting about lawyers in general is they all seem to have a ton of knowledge stacked up in their head from the things that they've been through.
you
And
said
and the
all, not all.
oh, there's just it just seems
Many,
like
but not
you
all.
seem to know a lot of stuff
Mhm.
pretty quickly. And I know there's obviously some research items you got to do every now and then because everything's not going to be the same, but just impressed by how every time I ask a question, you're very quick to answer with some pretty knowledgeable advice. This is me boosting you up a little bit, puffing up
Okay.
the balloon a little bit. But yeah, so knowing that you're in real estate and that you work a lot with our clients and so on and so forth, one of the things that's really popular right now is summer properties, summer cottages, things like that. It's something that's kind of becoming back. Like we had a bit of a sell off over COVID, and as interest rates went up, and now people are slowly starting to eke their way back into looking at some of those properties, if not for their own personal use, but also for some money making opportunity.
Mhm.
Um, I guess I would want to throw it your way to say like as a secondary property because it's I know traditionally in Ontario the primary property or the primary residence you live in, for example, is not taxable as far as when you sell and buy.
Yeah,
But as
principal
a
residence
secondary
exemption.
property, what are some of the pitfalls and things we're looking for that we need to kind of protect ourselves with?
Yeah, so it's and that is a common scenario. It wasn't actually a scenario for myself. I was when I bought my cottage, for example, I was actually renting when I lived in downtown Toronto and
Oh,
had a
cool.
good rental situation, and it didn't make sense for me to buy in the city because my rental was nice and I had been there a while with a really good price. So financially, that made a lot more sense for me. But I did want a recreational property, and for various reasons that made sense for myself and for my family. I have family out in Ottawa and also towards the western side of southern Ontario as well. So it kind of gave our family a place to congregate for holidays and catch up. But most people that is the type of scenario. Either cottages have been in the family for a long time, or you're acquiring it as a second owned property, third, whatever it may be. And so there are a lot of things to keep in mind, especially on the acquisition or disposition. But I think in terms of the hot button that a lot of people ask me about right now is we've seen as Airbnb, for example, has proliferated. A lot of people have had this concept of I'll buy a cottage property for X, and if I'm able to rent it for two, three, four, five, whatever thousand a week in the summer times, and or through the winter time, there's a lot of financial benefit there. But that's without the depth of knowledge in terms of what the consequences can be as well, and there's ups and downs to all of that. And in particular, like you mentioned, if you own your own principal residence, when you go to sell it, you don't have to pay capital gains. There's an exemption to that, principal residence exemption. Cottages can work similarly, and we'll speak of recreational properties as basically referencing cottages because it's
Same
Canada
idea.
Day, basically it's cottage season.
Yeah.
So the couple main things to keep in mind there are, yes, there is a principal residence exemption, and you can use it even if you do have a house in Burlington, for example.
Mm.
You can use it. It depends on how you allocate and what you designate as your principal residence. Even if you only stay in a cottage, say for some of the summer, a few months, that can still count as a principal residence. And when you go to dispose of it, it can still be not subject to capital gains if it's properly designated prior and at the time. So there are ways of getting around it. And some of this, when we get into taxes, I'm a lawyer, but I do want to just also hesitate and caution everyone. If you have specific questions or circumstances, talk to a lawyer and make sure you talk to someone who's educated and knowledgeable. And especially when it comes to recreational properties, that isn't necessarily the case. Your lawyer who may have helped you with your purchase or your sale previously, they don't, if they're down in Southern Ontario, they may not do a lot of these types of properties. And there are a lot of really, really specific niche components to these transactions that you really should have someone who's an expert dealing with them to assist. And so that's also talking about the principal residence, but we also have to consider things where we're into Airbnbs, short-term rentals, where you have HST that's applicable and
Mm.
creating a capital gain too. If you have a short-term rental property, say you Airbnb it out, you can, even if you're using it and otherwise think you're going to get your principal residence exemption, that can trigger not just the property being subject to capital gains when you sell it, but also being subject to HST when you sell it. And
Right.
a buyer might look at that and say, now I'm going to be buying a property, and it might be now no one was paying attention to it. If the agents aren't paying attention to it when the deal is happening, and we can be looking at 13% added to the purchase
Mm.
price.
Mm.
So that can be quite difficult. Yeah.
So when it comes to an Airbnb situation, is the best scenario to purchase the property in a corporate entity, or is it like what's the best kind of advice you have with relation to that?
The first thing that if someone's thinking I'm going to buy a cottage and I'm going to totally rent it, or I'll use some of it and rent it some of the time, the first most important thing to think about is municipal rules. So
Mm,
does the municipality allow
good
this? If
call.
they don't, you may be getting in a scenario where you're buying a property, also creating tax problems, and you're going to get fined and not allowed to use it for that purpose.
Right.
So you can get yourself into a whole hornet's nest. So doing proper diligence is really important. As is, I usually caution clients if they just come saying, "Hey, I bought a cottage property." Well, did you think about this, and this? And a lot of it, if you're getting into recreational types of properties or unique types of properties, talk to your agent and your lawyer before you go ahead with doing the deal. Having assistance from your lawyer beforehand can really help avoid a lot of the problems that then have to be a rush to fix later, or make just you may be caught in a scenario where you have to pay for them. Um, if we talk about is it better to buy in a corporation or not, there's a lot of unique specific circumstances related to the individuals, whether that makes sense or not. From an HST perspective, it may or may not make that much of a difference, but it
Right.
also will potentially prevent you from having your principal residence exemption if that's going to be applicable soon or down the road as well. So
Right.
it really is up to the individual. A benefit of a corporation, really, there's two of them when you look at whether it's buying real estate or doing anything else. But from a real estate perspective, the two are: one is deferring tax. So if a corporation earns income, then you're able to pay for small businesses a lower amount of tax, around 12.5%, as opposed to if you're an individual earning income, say you own it personally, this Airbnb, and there's rental income, that has to be declared by you personally on top, and then goes on top of whatever your personal income
I
is.
was just going to say
So,
that. So if you're at a
yeah,
50% tax bracket, but you're only making $30,000 for the year in rental, you're still paying 50% tax on it. So you have
yeah.
to be able to find write-offs and things to make that work, I assume, at that point, right?
Yeah, as opposed to in the corporation, you can then defer that tax till later when you do draw it out as dividends from the
Right.
from the corporation. So that is, that's one of the main considerations. The other one is liability. And if you're renting properties, short term or long term, sometimes there is a benefit. You're going to have insurance and those types of things to assist as well, but there is some benefit to the concept of having a corporation be the owner, because there is a little bit of a liability blockade there where it's not you that owns the property, it's the corporation. So if something happens and the owner of the property gets sued, it's a corporation and the corporation's
Right.
assets that are available, not yours, your own personal residence, and the savings that you've saved up in a bank account for
Mm.
your children's school, that kind of thing.
Interesting. That's a good
Yeah.
one. Talk to me a little bit about this comes up every now and then, especially with cottage properties and everyone wants to be lakefront. Everybody wants to be on a waterfront.
Mhm.
Explain riparian rights and what that means and how that kind of plays out when it comes to those types of properties.
Yeah, so
I'm
this was
kind
a
of throwing you a
whole.
curveball because we didn't really talk about riparian rights before, but here we are.
That's all
Let's
right.
do it. Let's just
It's
do it.
I actually remember the day in law school where we learned that. We started talking about riparian rights and property law because it was that word kind of triggered something, and it's just an interesting word. You don't need to know the word for everyone out there. Basically, riparian rights is just talking about waterfront and your rights with respect to the waterfront. There's to simplify it, is we can break it down into kind of two scenarios. And this is an overgeneralization, but for a short discussion purpose today, I think it's really helpful. Is the body of water that you're on, is it navigable or non-navigable? And you can kind of think about it in your mind. Is it big? Is there a lot of people on it? And can it go somewhere? Versus, is it a pond? So for example, if there's a pond or a small lake and two properties surround it, and it's just on those two properties, it isn't part of a river system, then you're non-navigable. In the case of a non-navigable waterfront, your rights as the owner of the property go into the water up to essentially, think about it as the halfway point. So,
Right.
or pizza slices. So say there's a pond and it's a circle and there's four properties that all have corners of it. Well, each one gets a pizza slice of a
Got it.
quarter going out to the middle point. The opposite is navigable water. So, for example, a cottage that's on the Trent Severn Waterway,
Hmm.
that property does not have ownership rights beyond the waterfront. So what? Who owns beyond the waterfront? Who owns the lake bed, the riverbed? The crown does, and by the crown we mean the government. That's just our old timey fancy way of saying the government. The government owns it, and there are pros and cons of that. One of the pros is if the water goes down and your property actually starts to go out into the waterfront, you get right to own that access, that increase in land. Whereas if there's accretion and the water is eroding your property and it's
Yes.
coming back, you actually lose your property and that becomes crown.
Ugh.
So there are, and generally we see that more than the other way.
Yes.
So it's important to kind of know that, and when you're looking at purchasing a property with waterfront, that is a really important question, is what do I own?
Yes.
And making sure that before you do go ahead and have an unconditional purchase, is ask your agent and your lawyer to make sure they've verified that you own right up to the waterfront, because sometimes there's a strip of land that the Crown also reserves for
Mhm.
access along. So you may have public access right along what you think is your waterfront,
Right.
and also whether you have rights that are going to go forward into the water or back. Because if there's erosion, you may lose some of what you think is your valuable waterfront, and how to protect that.
Well, that's an interesting point because I know Karen even lived on Britannia Road on the back of Bronte Creek.
Right.
And I think she lost about 8 to 10 inches a year,
Hmm.
every year. And the hilarious part about it is the conservation wouldn't even allow her to do any kind of shoring up.
Right.
So it was just like, no, we don't care. We don't want you to touch it.
Yep.
And you're
And
just going to lose property every year, basically, at that point.
that's really common, and it becomes difficult because what do? The municipalities do have zoning rights and regulations, so you may not be able to shore
Recover.
up
Yeah.
your waterfront. You look at it and you think, oh, if I brought a bunch of big armor stone in, I
Yeah.
would protect it. The water wouldn't keep eroding my property. It'd be beautiful. You might not be allowed to do that, so that's a consideration before you buy. And there are other kind of more indirect considerations for properties like that can help you. Vegetation is one of them, and that's one of the kind of tricks of the trade. Is if for example, willows have big root systems and they can really shore up property frontage, so that can help you prevent the erosion where someone may just have a nice beautiful lawn that goes out into the river. Well, that's going to get eaten away at much quicker than if you back it up with vegetation too.
Are there a lot of liability? Like my biggest concern with, cottage property is the amount of activity that gets done on these properties. So people like to water ski and whatever, swim in the waters and stuff there. And I always worry about like short-term rentals and the liability of if someone hurts themselves on your property, and it's like they flip off the dock and break their leg in half or something like that. I don't know,
Yeah.
which God forbid that happens. But, what sort of liabilities do we carry? And are the insurances that these companies offer enough for that? Like, I feel like I'd be a little bit terrified of that.
And as a cottage owner myself, and I don't rent my cottage, but I would be terrified myself as well. And one of my neighboring properties to the cottage that my family we own, they do rent, and they chose. I actually asked him about that just for more of a personal. What are you doing for yourself? Because you have tenants here on a weekly basis, and some of them, and he's got canoes and kayaks and paddle boards and stuff like that. So if they're going out and they don't know how to swim properly, and we
Mm.
see that lots of times, they don't know how to use a canoe properly. Water is incredibly dangerous,
Yes.
and can be incredibly powerful as well, depending on the times of the year, and if you are familiar with it or not. And so some of these Airbnb will offer some insurances. You can also protect yourself a little bit by including waivers, but ultimately anyone can sue anyone at any time for any reason, whether they're
Mm.
right or wrong. So even if you have waivers of liability and insurance in place, doesn't prevent you from potentially still getting sued and having to respond to it. So that is something to in the back of your mind keep in charge there. And I also do, and my neighbor, for example, he has additional insurance
Mm.
because he rents the property. It also requires from his mortgage that he has certain types of additional insurance. And so he does have additional private insurance on top of the standard amount that comes available to him through Airbnb, I believe is what he uses. And so he makes sure he's topped up in case anything happens, God forbid, because $1 million worth of liability insurance, that doesn't go very far nowadays.
No,
If
it
someone
doesn't.
dies or hurts them, breaks their neck.
Well, I mean, you're talking about it. The cottage, lifestyle is there's a lot of alcohol involved, and you just
Mhm.
never know, right? Like people do dumb
Fire.
shit.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what about liens and other encumbrances on the properties like rights of way? I feel like there's a lot of that going on up in the country areas or those sort of cottagey areas where properties were kind of cut out of this, that, and the other. And, like there's no roadway to it. So you got to go through this property to get to that property. Is that
Yep.
something that happens pretty regularly up there?
All the time. It's really common, and it can create its own set of problems too. When you're purchasing a property, generally nowadays, almost all purchases for real estate utilize title insurance when you close,
Mm.
and that one of the things that product helps with is fraud, title fraud. If someone pretends to be you and sells it when you're not home, and now you think, well, there's someone else living in my place. I just went to Disneyland for a week. What happened? And
Yeah.
now you don't own it. That product can help with that, but that's a more of a newer benefit to those title insurance products. The other benefit of title insurance is helping you. It helps protect what you think you're buying when you buy, where that company says, yeah, we think you're buying this and you have access, yada, yada. If it turns out later that you don't, or someone has an easement across your property. So if you think I'm buying this strip of land and it's got a nice cottage on it and it's nice and wide and it's all me and no one can come or go, and you find out you're there, you move in and it's Canada Day, you move in and you're sitting out and you're getting your Corona ready or maybe Muskoka Detour, there we go. That's a smaller company,
Local
Canadian
brand,
company.
local.
Yeah, elbows up, right? And then a family starts walking past your cottage towards the waterfront, and they've got their water wings on their kids, and they're carrying a couple canoes or kayaks or something. And you think, what are you doing here? And it turns out there's a right of way that all of the cottages that aren't abutting the water on the other side of the road have access across. Well, that
Mm.
really devalues what you think you have, the privacy you have, and the property that you have. So that can happen, and it's very complicated. A lot of these, like you said, a lot of these cottages come from old, forest properties and
Like hundreds and
farming
hundreds of
properties.
acres, right? Like that are
Yeah, and
just
they were
tipped
divided
up and
up in weird ways with
yeah.
weird rights where a whole bunch of them have a road access together, and some of it wasn't even properly coordinated and papered. So there are old rights in terms of usage. You've used it for so long, and the property before me had access for so long. Sometimes you're able to, if it turns out that you actually don't have legal access to your property, for example, well, you may be able to acquire it and have that papered later because of historical use. But it is important. I say, same as like the waterfront issue, it's important with these types of properties to again have an expert who knows these things, not just a standard residential lawyer, but an expert in this type of field, be involved before you purchase the property. So they can say, you know what, for a small cost of us going to the land registry and figuring all of that out, which we can do electronically now, and the cost is pretty minimal, especially if you're spending 500,000, $1 million, $2 million on a property, to spend $300 to check and make sure your access is
Mm.
guaranteed and what your boundaries are. That's really, really important. And a lot of people get surveys
Mm.
that will help you do that, but surveys now are very expensive and take a lot of time. So sometimes you've got to kind of find the middle
But
ground.
some of them are also super old. I've seen surveys from those areas that are in like meets and bounds.
Yep.
And it's like,
Yep.
what the heck does
Most are.
that mean? Nobody knows what that is.
Yep.
So it sounds to me like the suggestion for you is, especially in a time when we have a bit of a buyer's market right now, especially up in the cottage country areas, putting in a condition for your lawyer to review all of the aspects of the property to determine, rights of way and things like that is actually a really good thing and probably should be a thing all the time, quite frankly.
Yeah, and we got away from that. And Justin, you'll remember over the last decade, really,
Mm.
in real estate, residential real estate, and recreational real estate, we really got away from the old benefits and use of conditions, a lot of conditions to make sure you're satisfied before your deal is going ahead. Everything you had to go in some of these properties before, there's been a bit of a cooling off in the real estate market. You would have to go in way over asking with your offer, and you would have to go in with no conditions, and you're just winging it, hoping. And we saw a lot of times where that scenario happened and unfolded, especially in these types of recreational or rural properties where you're kind of hoping, you know what, it'll be okay. It wasn't always okay, and it was expensive fixes or not fixable things that would be the outcome. So it is, yeah, to the extent that we can get back to doing these deals properly and having knowledgeable agents. For anyone on this call, Justin and I are friends personally outside of work, but we met through work professionally, and we've worked on a lot of transactions together. And he's an excellent realtor, not just from his skills and knowledge, but also because he'll treat you fairly and cares about you, and cares to do a good job. But that's what you're looking for. And I'm not just selling you, Justin. There are other realtors out there that do that work, and practice ethically like that. But it is very important to have an agent who will tell you, you need this conditional, and it is very important. The risk to you if you do not is significant. And listen to your professional advisors, especially when they're giving you advice that says kind of pull the reins back, because that doesn't benefit them to do that. It benefits you, and so that's important to have those ethical, straight approach, honest professional service providers.
I very much appreciate those kind words. That's, I mean,
Oh,
I'm just kidding. But genuinely speaking, I think the trick is this. The story is this. I think this all circles back to the Conan O'Brien quote.
yeah,
Is really what it is. Like I'm not in it as much as I'm in it for me, and I think you'll say the same thing. The more we help other people in the right way, the more it will work for us, if you understand what I mean.
100%.
And
And
I
our,
think
our
there's a lot of
firm,
people that have done shitty things out there that have caused problems, and they probably don't exist much anymore.
No, exactly. And or they exist in some other form because they keep having to change their
Yeah.
stripes to spots so
Yeah.
that people don't identify them. But our law firm, we've been growing quickly. We've only been open the one that I founded, Think Green Law. We've only been open for 4 years, and we've been growing very quickly. And we don't do external marketing. We do have a website, but that's about it. And all of our clientele come via referrals, and we only accept clients, generally speaking, via referrals, so that we know they're trusted, and there's some sort of nexus between us and those persons. And it's because of working in that manner that allows people to say, use my lawyer for this. And similar, I can say, use my friend Justin as a realtor. You can trust him. And it's important. And in the short term, you may get more clients with a billboard or a fancy ad. In the long term, it doesn't build your business, and it doesn't build your reputation. And those things are they're good for you financially. For our business, it's good that we have strong reputations, but it's also important as a human being to know that people care about you, trust you, and know that you feel that way about them as well.
Well, and for us, and I'm sure you feel the same, having partners like you that actually know what they're doing and work at a high level like us
Mhm.
just creates a better experience for our clients as a whole all the way around. So I think
Yeah.
we're all seem to be doing the right thing here. We've all got trusted people around us. And I think the reality is that we've got we really appreciate the trust our clients give us as a whole. So
Yeah. Yeah.
To summarize this conversation just about country property or cottage property, get someone who knows what the heck they're talking about from the second you start the process. So
Yes.
if you're going to go grab a country or a cottage property, find a realtor that knows what the heck they're talking about. And I'm not even putting up my hand. I've sold a couple of them, but call me and I'll get you in front of a few of them. Let's
Yeah.
start with that. I don't even want that deal because it's too complicated for me and it's too far away. So I'll put you in front of the right people.
Well, not
Then part,
necessarily too complicated for you, Justin. I know you've worked on very complicated,
yeah,
but
yeah.
there are different types of complicated.
Just I would rather
Yeah.
focus on my people down here that are doing the things
Yeah.
down here, and I'll let those people do their business up there. It's why we have areas. I mean, it's really like I could go Ontario wide if I wanted to,
Yeah.
but it just doesn't allow me to service my clients effectively if I did that. So
Yeah.
start with finding a great agent in those areas, and if you need them, call me. I'll let you know. I'm sure Daniel has a few good referrals up for those areas too. And then secondly, have that backing of a great lawyer and insurance person as well. We haven't really kind of hit on that, but a good insurance person that knows what the heck they're talking about, but also a great lawyer to get you through all those little bits and bobs that they need to know. Your current residential lawyer down in the city may not have the knowledge or the wherewithal to get those deals done properly up there and to understand what to look for up there. So folks like Daniel and other people that practice in those areas regularly are the place you want to be. I think we're done.
Yeah, I think that's it. I did because I am up in cottage country at the moment, and we're talking about cottages. I did want to raise one quick thing,
Do it.
and this is the one of the other big tips of the day is when I get bit by mosquitoes, they sting and I get big welts from them. So I'm just gonna hold this little guy up. This is something a gift someone gave me, and I swear by it now. I don't know about other bites, but for mosquito bites, it does work.
Okay.
We'll see if we can get this to the camera.
Okay.
And you can see the name on it there. Now,
EEURER.
yeah, and I got it through they got it through Lee Valley hardware. And what it is with a mosquito bite, there are how I understand it, I'm not a scientist, there are proteins in the enzymes that make you itch.
Oh,
And if you heat them up enough, it denatures those proteins. So if you think about the afterbite that you put on that product, that just changes the pH in the skin, so it makes it not itch temporarily. This will denature them, and it works. So it's about
really?
5 seconds of heat. It does hurt a little bit, and then the mosquito bite is gone. So if you didn't take any legal tips from this presentation, get yourself one of these. I think they're 30 or 40 bucks, and they work. No more
That's so
mosquito bite
good.
itching. There
That's
you go.
so good. Well, listen, we've already put Daniel's link for his law firm down on below in the chat. So if you have any legal questions for Daniel, you can always hit that button down there and reach out to him directly. Or if you have me on speed dial, just call me and I'll get you in touch with him for sure. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming away from your little time away to have this conversation. And we will talk soon.
It was lovely. I appreciate it. We're not on Canada Day anymore, but happy Canada Day to everyone.
Of course. I'll go. Oh, Canada. Go Canada. Elbows up.